that he's talking about here, technically in context, is not talking about the whole nation. He is talking about the 10 tribes. Ephraim. He's saying Israel has played the harlot, but don't let Judah offend. Brothers and sisters, the children of Israel, the 10 tribes, Ephraim, were put out in the days of Sennacherib and Sargon, the Assyrians. So, and Judah still was in the land. And they got themselves put out almost a century later under the Babylonians. The Jews, Judah, Benjamin next to him, and some of Levi came back after that 70-year captivity. And probably a couple of people from some of the tribes who could make their way back, they made their way back. Go and read about the mother, I forget her name, but the mother in Luke who had blessed Christ when he was brought to Jerusalem to be circumcised, and she asked Mary and Joseph to hold Christ, and she said she's seen the Lord's salvation so she could go and die and everything. It says she was from the tribe of Asher. So I'm not saying there weren't some individual Israelites from other tribes who didn't eventually make their way back to the land. But Israel, here, when he talk about Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, sacrifice, ephod, he's talking about the 10 tribes in context, but then yes, it will eventually encompass the whole nation as a whole. Why? Because of this. Go over to chapter 5, verse 5. And the pride of Israel doth testify to his face. Therefore shall Israel and Ephraim fall in their iniquity. Judah also shall fall with them. Judah eventually shall fall with them as far as he's going to fall in his sin too. But the tribe of Judah technically didn't get put out the land until a century or more later. So they didn't get put out with the 10 tribes who were called Israel. Remember, the nation was broken into two sticks. One stick was Israel, one stick Judah. So Israel ain't always talking about even the 12 tribes. Sometimes Israel is talking about the 10, and Judah is talking about the tribe of Judah with Benjamin under his coattail, and the Levites who stuck to Judah because of the tabernacle being in Judah's territory. This is what you will understand if you study. So when he say Israel shall go without prince, even though the Jews came back, and not all the Jews, because history proves all the Jews weren't willing to go back. Some made a good life for themselves in Babylon, didn't want to go back to the barren, desolate land. But even though the Jews went back, the children of Israel as a whole have been many days without a king and without a prince. And even when the Jews went back, they still didn't have a king and a prince. And when they finally had somebody called king, it was because the Romans appointed an Edomite who was an Edomite convert who practiced Jewish faith and made him ruler. That's just facts. So let me continue. Let's go to Luke 21 now. Let's go to Luke 21. Because we know it was a temple built. And that temple was built in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay? So let's go to Luke 21. Luke 21 and 5. And when we get to Luke 21 and 5, it says, and as some spake of the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, he said, he being Yeshua, Jesus, as for these things which ye behold, the days will come in the which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So he prophesied to him. Skip to verse 24. And they shall fall, talking about the Jews and those in Jerusalem. They shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So the children of Israel, the leftovers, getting put out by the Gentiles, their temple and all their holy place being destroyed, and now the city of Jerusalem shall belong to Gentiles until the Gentile rule in this earth is finished. So the Gentiles will have control. So one, if there's going to be a temple rebuilt, who's going to build it? Are we or any of our brethren from across the four winds of heaven going to be brought back and allowed to build it? Because you tell me, according to the prophecies and the prophets, from which we read from the beginning till now, how can anyone except the children of Israel build a building in Jerusalem and it be considered the temple of God. I'm sorry, Zadok will not observe anything that Edom and the sons of Japheth build as being the temple of God, because the prophets don't show it. Even when you read in the prophets about when the children of Israel come back and the nations, the kings of the Gentiles, and the Gentiles are going to nurse Israel. They're going to give the wealth of the nation shall become Israel. Well, that'll be just like when Ezra and them left. The Gentiles didn't rebuild it after the captivity in Babylon. They just gave supplies and money so that the children of Israel themselves could build the temple unto their God, as Cyrus decreed. So is that going to happen? Because if we don't build it, that is not the temple of God. I'm talking about a literal stone building. I don't care if they build something tomorrow. If I wake up tomorrow morning, Sabbath morning, and there is a building standing over there gleaming gold, I will not consider it the temple of God. And any of you other Hebrew Israelites who are of the doctrine of the other persuasion, which I'm kind of showing you I don't agree with, you tell me how Edom and Japheth, according to the prophets, are going to build a temple for this man of sin, quote unquote, to go and stand in. Now, if they do build something and he's standing there, cool. But he ain't standing in the temple of God. Okay. Yeshua said the temple of God would be destroyed, right? So we know that happened in 70. Let's go to Revelation 7. Let's go to the writer John. Revelation 7. And when we get to Revelation 7, we're going to start reading at verse 13. Okay. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple, and he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. And they shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. So these redeemed out of great tribulation, they will, verse 15 again, Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. Now, if this happens on earth, what temple will they be in to serve him? If any temple, it will be this one. Let's go to Ezekiel 40. Now, when we read about this temple in the book of Ezekiel, brothers and sisters, as far as I know, and you cats who teach the last days man of sin standing in the holy place, quote unquote, temple doctrine, ain't Zerubbabel and Joshua the son of Josedek and them, ain't they supposed to be the ones to build this temple in Ezekiel? So even this temple we're going to read in Ezekiel, as far as your doctrine goes, have Zerubbabel and Joshua from the book of Zechariah, who preached during the rebuilding coming out of Babylon. They preached in Jerusalem when the children of Israel were building the temple coming from Babylon. Zerubbabel and Josedek supposed to have their hands in this temple we're about to read about in Ezekiel. You still ain't got Edom and Japheth building it. So this ain't the temple, quote unquote, that the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians is supposed to come sit in and prove to himself he God, and exalt himself above everything that is called God, right? Because he's going to stand in the holy place, right? Okay, where we at? Ezekiel 40, starting at verse 1. Ezekiel 40, starting at verse 1. In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that the city was smitten, in the selfsame day the hand of the Lord was upon me and brought me thither. So this is 25 years into the captivity of Babylon that Ezekiel has this vision. In the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel, and he set me upon a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. Now, this city wasn't literally there because this is the 25th year of captivity.